We are back on another episode of Sports Slice, and I feel like every single week I say this. There's just so much that has transpired in the sports world since the last episode of Sports Slice, and we are going to dive into all things related to the UFC, WNBA, and then obviously my favorite part, the slice of unbelievable. But we'll start with the UFC. So last week, it was announced that during International Fight Week, Conor McGregor is making his return after 5 years of being away from the sport. He's coming back in a rematch from August 17th of 2013 against Max Holloway. Now, this fight's going to be taking place at the 170 weight, which I think is more natural for Conor McGregor. It'll be interesting to see if Max Holloway is going to be able to fill out at 170, but from that standpoint, I think that's a massive benefit for Conor McGregor. In fact, I don't think Conor McGregor would even be able to cut down to like a 165. But regardless, and I think it's partially due to his inactivity over the past 5 years, Conor McGregor's a plus 255 dog on FanDuel and on some of the other sports betting apps right now. Unbelievable. July 11th, we've got Conor McGregor making his return. The rest of the card is insane, filled with just massive names. And I know it's International Fight Week, so obviously, you're going to have some guys that are bigger names that are kind of further down on the main event and, the main card. But we've got like Paddy Pimblett's fighting, Corey Sandhagen, who just lost to Merab for the belt a couple months ago, and even Cody Garbrandt. Now, Cody is an interesting name because 5, 6, 7 years ago, he was the best fighter in the UFC. And then he lost, 5 straight fights, 4 straight fights. He's lost 7 out of the past 10 or 11 fights. And I know he just won in a decision his last time out. A little bit of controversy surrounding it because there were some low kicks that who he was fighting against ended up losing a couple points for. But regardless, this is possibly the best time for the UFC to have Conor McGregor coming back. And first off, like I said before, with Conor McGregor being a dog, truthfully, I think this is a fight that Conor McGregor wins solely due to the fact that Conor McGregor has nothing left to prove. So the fact that he's coming back after a 5-year hiatus shows that he truly wants this. And there's been a whole bunch of different interviews that he's done in recent days. And it looks like the old Conor McGregor kind of before he got into the, we'll say, off the octagon issues. So, the fire looks like it's come back for Conor McGregor. And again, this has a chance to be the best fight out of the entire year. And I know we've got some crazy fights going on here in the next, couple weeks at the White House. Crazy that an event's being held at the White House. But the ticket prices for Conor McGregor versus Max Holloway by far will be the most expensive ticket price possibly in the history of not even MMA, but all of sports. So again, my hot take, Conor McGregor's going to knock out Max Holloway. It's 100% confirmed. Remember this episode when it happens here in about 2 months from now. On to the next topic. So the WNBA has been massive here for the past couple weeks. The Indiana Fever look really good. The Atlanta Dream look really good. One team that, we're only 6-7 games into the season, but one team that has been interesting to watch over these first couple weeks has been the New York Liberty. Now, the New York Liberty's roster has kind of been a shell of itself, and I know we talked about this in a previous episode of Sports Slice, but they didn't have Sabrina Ionescu over the past couple weeks, and she finally made her return Sunday, and she dropped 11 points in 31 minutes. It was okay. Liberty lost. It was like 100-78, which is just unbelievable because, again, you have the Liberty, which for so long, the Liberty and the Aces have kind of been the standard of the WNBA, specifically the Aces. And the Aces are an interesting thing because the Aces are sitting at 4-2 right now as well, just like the Indiana Fever. But there's just this wild thing going on with the Aces where if they do anything related to their previous season's championship, and this has kind of been a thing for a couple years, and I know Caden mentioned this on the last episode of Sports Slice, but it seems like anytime they mention or do anything, whether it's a ring ceremony or a new banner for their championships, they lose. In fact, that actually just happened the other day when they lost to the Sparks. The Aces go and unveil their new banner, championship banner, and they go and lose to the Sparks without half. I mean, there was like 3 players that weren't playing for the Sparks. Cameron Brink hurt her ankle. Like, it was not a game that the Aces should have lost. Kelsey Plum dropped like 38 points. It was incredible. But so there's like this weird, and you guys know me, I'm all into the, the superstitions and stuff like that. But like, if you take a peek from the past 4 years, every single time the Aces play and they do, like I said, they do a ring ceremony or even a banner raising or whatever it may be, they lose. Like, it is unbelievable. So with that though, I know, like I said, I mentioned talking about the Fever and stuff. Caitlin Clark right now is playing some lights out basketball. However, there was an interesting, wild, controversial situation with the Fever and Caitlin Clark and the WNBA because the other day, Caitlin Clark was supposed to play. However, it was about 2 hours before tip-off when the Fever announced that Caitlin Clark was not going to be available for that game. And, late scratches happen and whatnot, but just the kind of lead up and the explanation behind it didn't make a whole lot of sense of, like she had some back tightness and all that sort of stuff. But it turned out, and it wasn't necessarily reported, that the day prior, Caitlin didn't actually practice. And so actually the Indiana Fever had violated the league's rules for player availability because per the WNBA, if a player is not available for the game, they have to notify the league or at least tell them, hey, there's a chance that this player is questionable 5 p.m. the day prior, unless it's a back-to-back. And it was not a back-to-back situation for the Fever. They didn't notify the league at all. Nobody found out that Caitlin Clark wasn't playing until, like I said, 2 hours before tip-off, which sometimes it happens, but this is a weird situation. And the WNBA actually kind of gave a little slap on the wrist to the Fever organization of, hey, like, don't do this again. Also, it's Caitlin Clark. It is the biggest name in the WNBA. So Caitlin doesn't play, like, fans aren't going to be happy. It's no different than, you buy courtside tickets to a Lakers game because you want to see LeBron James play and, he's on load management and he's not playing. So, I understand the WNBA's aspect of like, hey, like you just can't do this. I also understand it from the Fever standpoint because like things happen to players. Like sometimes there's things that are just not controllable. And I think that this probably was one of those situations of, hey, like she's just not playing. Now, from the standpoint of not saying anything about the practice before, there's really no excuse for that. But I don't think it'll happen again. And if it does, then it's all on the Fever. I mean, you can't really like one time it is what it is. 2 times it's like, all right, what are we doing? But regardless though, without Caitlin Clark, the Fever still won that game. The Fever, like I said, they're sitting at 4-2. They're second behind the Atlanta Dream, who are at 4-1. They look really good. That entire roster, top bottom, is so talented. I mean, we've got Sophie Cunningham dropping, 10 to 12 points a night. Caitlin's dropping 25 to 30 points. Like, it is unbelievable. And with talking about things unbelievable, we are going to my favorite part of Sports Slice, the slice of unbelievable. We are going all the way to the other side of the world in Egypt. Boxing. DAZN Boxing held its recent boxing event called the Glory in Giza at the Pyramids of Giza. There is a legit boxing event with a stadium outside of the Pyramids of Giza. This is something that truly I never thought would ever occur. I don't think really anybody thought that it would occur. But we're starting to see this trend of whether it's the UFC going to the White House or boxing going to the pyramids of Giza. Like, we're starting to see these trends of sporting events go to different venues to go viral on social media. Because at the end of the day, like, boxing is a sport that for the recent more years has been considered a dying sport. But something like this, I've never have sat down and actually watched a boxing event. However, this past weekend, not only did I buy DAZN's pay-per-view card to watch it, I literally sat down and watched 3 hours of boxing just because this event was held at the Pyramids of Giza. And the cool thing about this was, so this stadium was temporary because, you can't have a stadium literally outside the Pyramids of Giza. It's one of the, the seven wonders of the world. So this stadium was temporary, but it was a freestanding stadium, and the actual boxing ring was a raised platform for all the fights, and everything was completely constructed above ground. Now, I don't know how they did it. The architects behind it did an incredible job, and the TV version of the fights was unbelievable. Like, it felt like you were at the Pyramids of Giza, and the walkouts that they had. You had Alexander Usyk, who walked out in like a Roman gladiator outfit, and so he's walking out, and you see the Pyramids of Giza behind him, and you've got fireworks going off. And one of the cool things actually about it too, and this is just how much detail was put into this event, the sound systems for the stadium were actually designed to direct the sound away from the pyramids, because you have such a historic site. Like, you want to keep it as close to not touched as possible. And the fact that that was even something that was thought about, of like, hey, we've got these crazy, bass and sounds and all this kind of stuff going on. Like, we can't have it touch the pyramids. And so the fact that not only was that thought about, but also they were able to do that is just ridiculous. Like, I would have never have thought of that. So that's this week's Slice of Unbelievable. And coming up, I've got an incredible interview with none other than former sports TikToker Simone Scott. We talked about, some of our experiences together in San Francisco for the Super Bowl, and just some, life stuff about being sports creators and content creators in general, and kind of go through some of Simone's background and history. And we talk about our great rivalry between Duke and North Carolina. We are back with another guest on Sports Slice, as I'm joined by Simone Scott, or as people know her on TikTok, Simone Scott 33. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Tim. How are you?
Doing great. It's raining outside. It's a little chilly out, so had to rock the Duke sweatshirt. There's other reasons also that we'll get into.
Well, thank you for having me. This has been fun. I gotta go.
Right? For those that don't know, Simone is actually unfortunately a UNC graduate. It's all right. It's all right. It happens. But we're going to get right into these questions, because we've got some very interesting questions, whether regarding you as a content creator, or previously, for those that don't know, you actually worked in sports as like the kind of, we'll say, like the original version as a sports creator of, on the news and networks and all that sort of stuff. But first, the most important question: anytime there's a name on TikTok with numbers at the end, there has to be a meaning. So with Simone Scott 33, what's the meaning behind the 33?
The 33 is actually my dad's basketball number. So when he played at North Carolina, the best school in the world, go Tar Heels, we're the best. He was number 33. And then growing up, all the sports I played, I didn't get a number. So I kind of just stole his. So I'm going to keep the 33 for myself and kind of continue the legacy.
Love that. I think you were referring to Duke as the best school in North Carolina, but that's a subject for another topic. But recently, over the past week or so, you were actually named as one of TikTok and FIFA's World Cup creator correspondents. Let's give a little round of applause for that. That's super big time. What can fans and viewers expect content-wise from the tournament?
I think what's really exciting about it is that we're not just focusing on the matches because that's everyone's going to see the matches. We want to get the behind the scenes stuff, maybe go to practice and training sessions, maybe go around the stadium. I'm personally interested in like what food is being served either to the players or to the fans and just get the whole World Cup experience because again, there's 16 different places where this is happening. You can't go to all 16. So if you can
Right.
get like a glimpse into each individual one, I think that's so fascinating. And I'm a nosy person, so I want to see everything.
Love that. Love that. Is there any teams or players or maybe even like venues that you're most excited to see?
I want to see all the big stars. I'm gonna get a Ronaldo game, which I'm very excited about.
Really?
I'm gonna see him in Houston, so that's gonna be fun.
That's awesome.
I'm going to MetLife Stadium, which I haven't been to before, and my friends that live in New York have told me about it. So I'm actually very excited to see that up close.
That's super
I'm
exciting.
gonna be Yeah, I'm gonna be in Philadelphia on the 4th of July. And
There
I'm
we
like,
go.
that's gonna be wild. And so I can't wait for that. Like just the fact that it's the 4th of July too, it's just gonna be like
Right.
spectacular. I'm expecting fireworks, literally and figuratively.
Well, hopefully the city of Philadelphia rolls out the red carpet. They should, because it is the best sports city in the world. Unbiased, totally biased. Um, but that's super exciting. Just getting to see Ronaldo in person might be like every sports fans like that is like the top bucket list thing for I feel like 95% of sports fans.
Yeah,
So
even if
that's
you're not a
amazing.
soccer fan, you know him. You know like
Right.
what's going on there. And so when I saw that, I was like,
Yeah, you're like, check that one off.
yes.
And that actually kind of goes into the next question here. So now, for those that don't know, Simone and I actually, I should have probably said this earlier. Simone and I actually met February of this past year, or this year, I should say, when we were in San Francisco for the Super Bowl with TikTok, and we got to do a whole bunch of interviews with some superstar athletes as well as some people that aren't even athletes. Who was it? Was it Helen Keller that was there? Um, Martha Stewart. Martha
Not
Stewart.
Martin. I'm like, I hope it wasn't Helen
Wow.
Keller.
Hello. I don't know why that was the first thing that came to my head. Wow. Martha Stewart was there. Crazy. But is there an athlete, and it could be a current athlete or past athlete that you would want to interview and why?
Hmm.
It's a
Now,
tough one.
growing up, really tough. I'm like, there's so many people out there. I want to talk to everybody. But I was a tennis not a star. I was a tennis player growing up. And Serena Williams was my everything. And so I would love to interview Serena. And then on the flip side as well, I was Andy Roddick's biggest fan. I would wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning to watch his Australian Open matches. So if I
No
could
way.
interview either, oh my, I was obsessed. I This is way back when, before there was TiVo. I would tape his matches so I could watch it later. I'm like, I'm going to model myself after this. But yeah, I would love to interview either of those two. I love tennis so much.
Did you play tennis growing up?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, my dad played basketball and I'm tall. My parents are tall. I'm 6 feet. Like we're just a tall bunch. And so everyone expected me to play basketball. So they put me in other sports. So I did gymnastics, but I grew out of that really fast. And then like swimming. But then tennis is the one I actually stuck with. So that's what I played all throughout lower, middle, upper school, even contemplated college, but I was not that good. So
Mhm.
we
That's
stopped there.
crazy. It's funny that you said that because on a previous episode of Sports Slice, I was actually talking about like I've played a lot of sports over my life. Football has always been the main thing. Baseball, you paid. Fun fact: I actually played baseball for 11 days and then I quit. Um,
Woo.
but tennis, yeah, bad. Tennis was the one sport, even now, that I just cannot figure out how to play. Like I get obviously the premise of it and everything, but I can't serve. I can't hit the ball
Mm.
back. Like I cannot. I'm a coordinated person, but when it comes to tennis, I look like a baby giraffe. Like it just doesn't work. But that's awesome though. That's super cool. The next question. Now, obviously with the World Cup stuff, like probably it could be this, but has there been a this is actually my life now kind of moment for you through your um, content creation journey on TikTok?
It was when you and I were at the Super Bowl.
Oh
That
yeah.
was the most surreal thing I have ever experienced in my life when we were on that huge stage and they were bringing up Hall of Famers and
Yep.
all of these Pro Bowlers to come talk to us. I was like, I still think that wasn't real. I think you and I were just dreaming it up and it was just like a synchronized dream. But that was insane. That was my whoa moment.
Right. There's so many times I think back to that, and it's like explaining it to people. And I'm sure you've had the same thing of like telling people, oh, yeah, like just casually interviewing, whether it was Drew Brees or whoever it was. And it's just like you say it and you're like, that actually happened. Like it's completely unbelievable, but like it legit happened. And obviously you crushed it. And for those that haven't watched any of those interviews, you guys should definitely go check them out because there's some really funny stuff. We had Mac Jones dancing on the stage. Like also the setup that Bleacher Report and TikTok created, like shout
Oh my
out to
God.
whoever designed it, but like incredible. Yeah. Like we give them a little bow
It
here.
was
Like,
it was phenomenal. It was perfect. Like not only was it beautiful and just like cool to look at, it was so interactive that people didn't want to leave. Like we
right.
were the main attraction. People were like lining up to come play games with us. That was insane.
Yeah, and we even had the people from Bleacher Report and TikTok that were like, "Hey guys," like to the random people that were coming up on stage trying to play all the games. They're like, "Hey, so like this is an actual like set, and we're filming stuff here. We love that you're hanging out, but like you gotta go. Like, come on."
We got Deion Sanders coming up, so if you could just like maybe scoot to the side, please. Like, and you can try maybe the claw machine a little later.
Right, right. Speaking of Dion, so Dion's obviously super big on social media, him and obviously the rest of his family. Do you think there's an athlete that maybe isn't a content creator athlete just yet that would dominate
Hmm.
the creator space?
That's a good question. My like first thought, even though I think he might technically be considered contenty already, is obviously Jameis Winston. Like if he's
Love that.
tired of playing, he could just be on TikTok all day, like just videos, go live. Like I will watch anything he does. Like I mean, but I feel like that's an obvious answer because he's one of one.
Yep. I'll tell you what, the Amazon Prime broadcast for, Thursday night football, they have a real opportunity and I really hope they do this. So Jameis, if you're listening, like we got to make this happen. Put Jameis Winston and Ryan Fitzpatrick together each Thursday night might be
Mm,
one of the most entertaining broadcasts ever. Like that is
ever.
an incredible dynamic duo of just two hysterical personalities. And like they're gonna have to probably mute it every once in a while because I feel like the two of them together might get a little
A little
little
tape
hectic.
delay.
Yep, yep. Put a little 3 second delay there, and but I think that would be one of the more entertaining duos. So Jameis, when you decide to retire, hopefully Amazon Prime reaches out. But no, I totally agree. I think Jameis Winston would be a really fun personality to listen to on the creator side. Um, I think another one, and this is just getting to see him in person and listening to him. Now I know Drew Brees did a little bit of commentating, but I think Drew Brees would
Mhm.
be like a mix between like a Dan Orlovsky and like a Kurt Benkert of,
Mm,
obviously Kurt
I can
Benkert
see
has
that.
kind of, yeah, he's done really well in the creator space, and Dan Orlovsky, I mean, he's done well in the TV side. But I think Drew kind of has that personality where he can kind of just mold himself into a little bit of a blend of both of them. Because he seemed like he's a very like intense is probably not the right word to use. He's very kind of to the point, but at the same time,
Mhm.
like we saw it, like he's joking around with everybody when he's not on camera and all that kind of stuff. So
Right.
that'd be another one, I think. So we're gonna kind of go dive in more as towards the creator side for you and kind of get into the behind the scenes and whatnot. What do you think is the hardest part about being a content creator that somebody outside of the content creation space may not understand?
I think for me, it's honestly knowing when to turn it off because there's, especially in the sports world, there's always something going on. And there's always a video that can be made and you can like go several levels deep. And sometimes I'm just like, you need to go to sleep. Stop. And I think that's it. If you had this like a 9 to 5 job at 5 o'clock, you should be done. Just turn it off. But like I can't scroll my phone without thinking of work. And I'm like, this is how I'm supposed to relax. But I'm also like, oh, I could do a video on this and maybe I change. Like it's nonstop. Just your head's always going, which is a
Right.
great problem to have. But I think that's something people probably don't think about. Like your relaxation is our job.
Right. And I think they see, whether it's you or myself or another creator, like we just post and I feel like a lot of people that aren't creators or haven't really been around the space just think all they do is just post and like takes them 5, 10 minutes and that's it. But like they don't see the behind the scenes of like gathering the information. Or like if there's a story that's breaking, like for example, like with myself, it's like you have to kind of be available whenever because stuff happens all the time, whether it's at 10 o'clock at night or 4:30 in the morning when they're talking about Ian Rappaport's talking about AJ Brown being traded. Like you kind of just have to be available whenever. So I totally agree. I think you know people have this like weird connotation that it's like creators just post and that's it, and like they spend the majority of their day not doing anything, but it's complete opposite. Like there's always
Oh
something
my
going
God.
on, and that's I think one of the most interesting things is like being a creator now. It's like, hey, like you don't really have that much free time. Like you do, but you really don't.
Right. Like when I do fantasy football videos, I like to help my girls out with maybe some running backs you should start each week. And before I post that minute and a half video, I probably spend about an hour researching and another 30 minutes trying to cross like get my facts straight. Like it's just insane for a 90-second video. And I'm like, after you film it, then you got to edit it. I'm like, oh my
Right.
goodness, this is a lot. And I could just like write the names down and call it a day. But
Right.
it's just there's a lot. If you want quality stuff, you have to put in the time, the effort. It's a pain in the butt, but it really does benefit you in the end.
100%. And speaking of fantasy football, might need your help next year. We were talking about it actually last week or 2 weeks ago. I finished last in my fantasy football league. I think I was telling you about this too. Of like,
Right.
the league,
Yeah.
the league that I was in, I actually made the punishment of the person that finishes last place has to run a marathon in
Mm.
Hawaii. I finished last place, ironically enough. But I am so bad at fantasy football, and it's like my entire life revolves around the sport of football. So you would think that, like, in theory, I'd be better, but it's like I have the worst luck of drafting Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones starts out
Mm.
really well, and then he's out for the season, and or Tua. I also drafted Tua, and we know
Ooh.
how Tua's season went. So like on paper, my teams always look good at the beginning of the year, and then we get to week 5, and it's like, all right, well, 70% of Tim's roster is either not starting or hurt now. So he's not making the playoffs. So I will be reaching out to you, or also
I got you.
watching your videos for some fantasy football tips. So appreciate that. So,
Have you run your marathon yet?
no, December. Thankfully, I haven't because
Ooh.
I'll be honest with you. Since the season ended, I have probably worked out for the marathon 6 times, 7 times. And
Oh,
we're what? 7 months away, 6 months away. So
good luck with
also
that.
it's in a dinosaur costume, like one of those big blow up ones. So,
Ooh. Oh,
so
that's gonna be hot.
right? It's not about how fast I finish the marathon, it's if I finish it. So I will be probably spending at least 10 hours walking 26 miles.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
So
miserable. And you came up with this idea.
that's what I'm saying. Like I
Mm-mm.
am the moron for saying, "Hey, like let's do this." And we're like 3 weeks into the season and I'm 1-2 sitting, 8th place out of 12 teams. I should not be the one coming up with this idea. Like that should be the person that's in first place because they're like, "Oh, I got this in the bag." No. Um, but yeah, so there's that. So kind of talking about your past though. So for those that don't know, before you were actually a content creator in the social media world, you actually worked on the like TV side as more of like a traditional sports media reporter. What do you think is the two, or excuse me, what do you think is the biggest difference between the two?
Yeah, in my past life, I was just a traditional journalist, which is exciting. And I love it because, again, I love asking questions. I think the part that I just really, really love about the social media version of this is that it's a lot more loose. I'm allowed to be much more of myself. Not to say that I wasn't myself before, but this is just like like if I'm a little quirky, I'm going to say something kind of weird and it's okay. It kind of makes me me. It makes my channel my channel. And so I really love that aspect of it. I think that's the part that makes social media so fun. Even if I still try to bring in my traditional core, I can just like zhuzh it up a little bit.
Right. I feel like it's a lot less relaxed from, traditional media of like things have to be a certain way in traditional media where, essentially we're the first generation of content creators. So there's really no right or wrong. And, you find something that works and you just continue to do it, which I think is the amazing thing about, social media and, the different big apps that have been created and TikTok specifically. Shout out TikTok. What do you think, right? What do you think is a misconception traditional media gets wrong about content creators, if any?
I think I think they all right, this is kind of layered because I think they're wrong about it sometimes, but sometimes they're right about it. Is that again because this is so new, there are a lot of people they feel like aren't actual journalists or they call themselves media, but I mean, you give anyone a mic and all of a sudden you're a journalist, and that's not true. So I think that traditional media, they're trying to navigate it as well. Who or even who can be credentialed and who shouldn't. Because not everyone needs to be at a press conference. Like that's sometimes a little too much.
Right.
So I think that's probably just trying to figure out the divide. Because again, there are some people that take it serious and really want to do a good job. And then there are some people that just want to maybe rage bait and they call themselves media and then they can get in there and they can talk to Baker Mayfield and try to just like get a gotcha question in because they're media. So I think that's something that maybe both sides can work on a little bit.
No, I totally agree. And it's so fascinating because truly I've never really experienced like in person the divide except for one time when I was at the Army Navy game 2 years ago.
Ooh.
And there was some older gentleman sitting next to me. So how like the Army Navy game's unique where they don't really allow media per se unless it's CBS on the field.
Mm,
So you're allowed
mm,
pregame, and there's certain select individuals that are allowed on the field during the game, but it's like you have to know somebody to know somebody to know somebody kind of thing. But generally speaking, 99% of everybody goes back up into like the press box. And I was sitting next to these two older gentlemen, and I forget they were from whatever TV station in Washington, and they saw that my little tag thing said TikTok, and they're like, "Why are we inviting TikTok creators to the Army and Navy game?" And I was like, "Well, guys,
mm.
like I actually talk about sports. It's not like I'm not just dancing because they thought that like still TikTok was just a
Yeah.
dancing app. And I'm like, guys, like here's these videos. Like I just made a video talking about Army and Navy's uniforms and it's got like, 1.4 million views. And they're like, wait, people talk about sports on TikTok? And I was just like, all right, well, yeah, like you guys should be on TikTok. Like, what are we doing? But it's so fascinating because I feel like there is a divide. And I think it's also too is like you have two different generations. Like you have
Yeah.
the newer generation, which is the content creators, and then you have the older generations that's used to, getting your news from watching it on TV or the newspaper, not necessarily from
Mhm.
TikTok or another, social media platform. So taking the jump from being traditional media to, being a social media content creator, it's a massive jump. Was it scary leaving the, we'll call it like the safe place of, this traditional sports media path for content creation?
Yes and no. Ironically, the person who actually gave me like the boost and suggested I look into social media works for ESPN. And I was at a journalism conference and I'm like, I really want to try to make some kind of leap, but I'm not like getting the opportunities I feel like I should get. And he said, just go make your own videos, set up a camera in your room, start talking to it, and put it out there. And so that's really what gave me the idea to like, hey, let's just try this out. And like again, it's still scary. I still go to my journalism conferences and they're like, what do you do? And I'm like, content creation. But it's you can really see how the whole industry is kind of shifting because at those conferences we'll have different discussion groups and the social media content one's the biggest thing. And it's standing room only and everyone's taking notes because they know this is the future of media. And so even if you are a traditional news journalist, you need to have a social media game and social media presence as well. And so everyone's just trying to embrace it now. So maybe we're a little early, which is
True.
nice.
Yeah, super nice. And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there with, social media is kind of taking over. It truly is taking over. I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
look at not necessarily the sports realm, but just in terms of, content creation and social media in general is like you have people like the Dixie D'Amelios, the Charlie D'Amelios of the world that are viewed as these big time celebrities. And you're looking at this next generation of, kids growing up where they want to be like a Charlie D'Amelio and not a Jennifer Aniston, which love Jennifer
Right.
Aniston. Shout out Jennifer. But like people are looking up to TikTokers and people on just social media in general. And it's a fascinating place for you and I to be in because, we kind of have that too of like, yes, the Dan Orlovskis of the world who, are big on TV, they'll always be there. But now it's like
Mm-hmm.
this other avenue of, hey, there's people like Simone or there's people like Tim or there's people like, other creators that they kind of carved out their own little space in this social media sports realm. And it's so fascinating to see. Um, but we're going to go backtrack just a little bit further. So as said before, fortunately, you are a UNC grad. Shout out
A proud
UNC.
one.
We'll put the divide here, like we're putting the divide down. You know, um, you had the opportunity to work both in men's basketball as well as with football.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like working in both of those sports? And also during your time when you were at UNC, you had Roy Williams, one of the best, not Coach K best, but one of the best men's basketball coaches in the history of college basketball, and also Butch Davis, who is an iconic football coach. What was it like working with their staffs? And do you have any funny or cool stories from either of those coaches or coaching staffs?
It was amazing. I think I went to the best school, obviously, at the best time. I had such just a great experience. I would work in the basketball office during the week, and then I'd be in football on the weekends, and I would go before games and help with recruits. And it was just an exciting time. I love like just the amount of love for the university, both programs and I guess all of the sports have for Carolina. Like if you drive through Chapel Hill, our trash cans are Carolina blue, the fire truck's Carolina blue. I mean, the sky is Carolina blue, even over in
It
Durham,
makes
it's still
sense why the
Carolina
trash
blue.
cans are Carolina blue.
Mm,
Sorry, just had to
no,
put that in there.
okay, it's fine. But their staffs are always great. I was lucky enough when I was at the basketball office. It was during the '09 championship with, Tyler Hansbrough, Danny Green, Ty Lawson, Deion Thompson. These were my guys. And so I was fortunate enough to work on that following Tuesday after we won the championship. So I'm in the office and one they bring us a cake. I love cakes. I'm very excited about that. And then I get a phone call. So I answer and I'm like, oh, Carolina basketball, this is Simone. And they're like, hello, Simone, this is the White House. Maybe please talk to Coach Williams. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so I
Yeah.
transfer that over. So yeah, I like to think that I was the bridge between the White House and Coach Williams, who is also my favorite person in the entire world. I love Roy Williams with all of my heart. That is the sweetest man. Every story you hear about him is absolutely true. He's just, I love him so much. But yeah, that's probably my favorite basketball story. Like it was just, I tell that to this day. It's amazing.
That is unreal. Like I couldn't imagine being in your shoes as, a 20-year-old, 21-year-old and just being like, the White House is on the phone. Like they want to talk to you. Like I just couldn't fathom being in that position. That's amazing though. With working in both football and basketball, did you have like a preference that you like enjoyed more, or was it kind of just like two separate sports, two different experiences? It's a
Two
tough
different
question.
experiences.
Yeah.
It's a tough question. With football, we were on the rise. We weren't quite there yet. We're still not there yet. So the pressure wasn't as high. And so the games that we would go to weren't so stressful.
Hmm.
Basketball, like we went to, I think, two Final Fours during my 4 years. And it was, they probably lost like 8 games over that span. Every game mattered so much. It was high pressure. I was stressed at the games. I loved the games. I didn't miss a game, but it was stressful.
Yeah.
So like I like to think football's a little more relaxing for me. It's a 3 hours out in the beautiful sun, watching our team hopefully improve. Basketball, we have to win. That's it.
Well, I'll tell you, during that time frame, it was UNC was guaranteed to win every year against Duke because Duke football up until
Y'all were terrible.
oh, so bad. And let me tell you, growing up, it was a tough watch. Like Thad Lewis. So a little backstory. I'm a Notre Dame and Duke fan. So my dad's side of the family is all Notre Dame fans. My mom's side of the family is all Duke fans. So I have a cool little blend. But watching Duke football might have been the worst experience of my life growing up. Thad Lewis was the only guy that I looked forward to watching to. And we love Thad Lewis, but he is the definition of mid college quarterback. And he came so close a handful of times beating UNC, but like just Duke was not good up until, 2013, 2014. They had a couple of years where they almost beat Texas A&M in the Chick-fil-A Bowl. And then they were back to being bad. And now they're kind of on the rise again. And you lose your
They
quarterback to
are. They're doing
Miami,
better.
doing a lot better. Things
Mm-hmm.
things were bad seeing an 0-12 Duke team for 2.5 years, 3 years
Ooh.
straight. Um,
I'll tell you what. We play for like our victory bell,
yep.
and so whoever wins that gets to keep it. And y'all were so bad. I thought it was just our bell. So like I didn't understand that we had to give it to you if you actually won. I thought it was just like a Carolina belt we use. I didn't realize that we were fighting for it.
So it's a funny story because I actually had no idea there was a trophy up until I think it was 2012 when Sean Renfro was Duke's quarterback. Duke won on like a
Mhm.
last second score. It was like 27-24 or something like that. And the entire Duke team and some of the fans ran onto the field, but everybody ran into the corner of the end zone where there was just like, now it's kind of like a we'll call it like a JV trophy. Let's be real. Like it's on like this like
it's
cart, and it's just
it's
like a
hard.
bell
Really
that's
fun to go
like
like that.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
just like a bell that's bolted into a cart, and I'm like, what is this? Like again, I'm a
Yeah.
13
And
year
I'm
old,
like, what are
never
y'all
seen
doing
this.
with our bell?
Yeah. You're like, what are they doing with our bell? And I'm like, what is this bell? Like I love this, and then we go and lose it for another 5 straight years or whatever it was. But it's so fascinating that like you brought that up because I had the same thing. Just I had no idea
In
that we were
reverse.
playing for a bell. Like we just don't win. Um, but no, all love to UNC. It's all fun. It's a great rivalry. Honestly, I'd put it as a top 5 rivalry in college athletics. Maybe not necessarily college football, just because both teams have kind of been on tough times. But basketball wise, it is the greatest college basketball rivalry, and there's no questions about it. Now, I do have one question for you though. Do you
Okay.
think Bill Belichick is the answer for UNC football? I'm putting you on the spot, putting you on the hot seat.
I still want them to give me tickets. So I am going to I I think last year was tough. I think the whole staff learned a lot from it. And so the answer, I don't know, but a, a solution for now, I think so,
That's fair.
if that makes sense.
No, it's
Yes.
totally
I
fair.
don't think it's our forever answer, but I
Right.
think it can help turn us in the right direction.
Right. And sometimes, and I know it sounds completely backwards, but sometimes you have to take a step back and maybe regress before you can get any sort of progress. And I know Bill Belichick, it's been coined that UNC's, the 33rd NFL team. Like, I do think there is some truth to that we're going to see, whether it's this year or 2 years from now or 3 years from now, like, it may not necessarily translate to UNC making a national championship run, but we're going to see a consistent 8 to 10 win UNC team as Bill, continues to progress at UNC. But also, I think what people are going to start to notice is UNC's players are going to be more prepared for the NFL, and they're going to be more
Mhm.
successful early on in their careers because they're instilling, NFL type schedules to these players. And I think ultimately football is the biggest copycat sport, whether it's college, high school, NFL. And I think we're going to eventually see a lot of these teams have like the copycat of like, all right, hey, like it's working for Bill and
Right.
UNC, and like UNC's got a good NIL fund, but it's never going to be the same as LSU or a Georgia
Right.
of the world. So you're going to have to get a little unique with it. And I think that's where the NFL style schedule and, you know, making it seem like players or professionals is going to work in terms of like their
Mhm.
schedule and stuff. Um, so it's going to be fascinating to see. Hopefully Duke beats UNC again this year. So
Mm.
I saw the head
See,
shake there.
that was y'all's one time. Bill knows now. He knows what's going on. He's got it.
We'll see. It's going to be fun to continue to watch Manny Diaz, and well, Manny Diaz might not be there for very long, but Manny Diaz versus Bill Belichick for hopefully the years to come. But that's all I've got for you. It's been great having you on here.
But wait,
Super.
wait, wait.
Uh-oh.
We didn't talk about the Yukon game.
What UConn game?
The Duke Yukon game. Remember the last second shot? Do you remember that from the March Madness
So
this past year?
you know, I actually there's a list of games in my lifetime that I bury and I don't ever talk about it. Duke UNC's, or excuse me, well, actually, many Duke UNC games are a part of it. Duke UConn is on the list. The Eagles losing the Super Bowl against the Chiefs also on that list. Um, what I'll say is it was a great learning experience for
Oh,
Duke and our fans of, hey, like, yes, we thrive on knowing Christian Leitner had his shot against Kentucky. Um, it can happen to us. It should have. Here's the thing: it should have happened to Duke when Duke played Butler in the national championship
mhm.
many moons
Yes.
ago. Butler should have won that
Mm.
game. Finally, karma came back to us and beat us. But with that being said, I don't think we'll see Duke lose like that in a national tournament anytime soon.
Maybe we can just replay it again. Like you should insert the clip here.
With that being said, we gotta go. No, the one thing actually, and I wasn't going to talk about this, but do we think NC State's basketball team is on the rise with Will Wade?
Not
Actually,
at
didn't
all.
Will Wade left, right? He's at LSU now.
Will
Yeah,
Will Wade Will Wade, I won't say deserted them, but that's what he did.
yeah.
Yeah, he pieced out. He's like by state. Like that's the thing Duke and Carolina fans can both agree on. No one's worried about state. Like, I'm sorry, no
I'll
offense,
tell
but
you
like
what
this
though, they looked good this year at times.
at
Like,
times, and then their coach left them.
true, but I think NC State will be well, they won't be really a respectable team, but they'll be okay. They'll
They'll be
so
there.
NC State and Wake Forest are like two strange schools where they're never going to be, well, I shouldn't say never. They shouldn't be great at basketball. However, they
Right.
go through like this 2 week stretch, and you see it every single season. Both of those teams go through like this 2 week stretch where they like are almost unbeatable, and they'll knock off a Duke or a UNC or a Syracuse back when Syracuse was really good. So I think we'll continue to see that. But yeah, you know what? I completely forgot that Will Wade left for LSU. Shout out LSU for taking some of the best coaches in sports. The whole Lane Kiffin thing is just wild. Like it's
They're going
like
to be
every day.
interesting to watch, that whole school.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. And when you have unlimited money, like you can kind of just do whatever you want and get away with it. Like it is baffling. But yeah, we'll cut out the Duke and UConn part. But it's it's been great having you on here. And if you ever want to come back, hopefully you do. Like we love to have you on here. It's been amazing, and the people will love having you on when they listen to this. But yeah, it's been a good time.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to come back anytime. I can talk
Sweet.
about Duke in a horrible way, which is what they are.
Wrong. Wrong. And hopefully you have a great time at the World Cup, and make sure if you guys are not following Simone yet, make sure you follow along with Simone's journey through the whole World Cup and all the action that she's going to get to see behind the scenes.